Hi.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome to Chatter Cheeks. This episode's Who's Your
Who's your
Daddy?
daddy?
So, Ashley,
Yes, Rose.
who's your daddy? What was your dad like when you were young?
Oh, it's strange because I don't remember a ton of things when I was little. There's certain memories that I have, birthday parties. I do remember my dad being kind of a fun guy, but also he was a disciplinarian.
So, did he have like a sarcastic personality like you?
Not really.
Or no?
No, not so much sarcasm.
Is he goofy? Like
He was goofy.
like
Yeah, he would
clown
make
goofy?
like funny faces.
Okay.
Sometimes, but then he was really scary if you got in trouble. Like I remember if you spilled something, big no.
Really? Do you remember a time where like you spelt something and he got really angry?
So I remember we got Dairy Queen and we got four gigantic, because there was four of us. So, and for some reason my parents bought my brother and I, who were pretty young, the same size as them, which was the largest blizzard
Ooh.
size that you could get.
Yeah.
And I was in charge of carrying it up the stairs. So I'm carrying it and I'm almost to the top and I tripped. And the one that fell out was my dad's.
Oh no.
I immediately started crying because I just knew
He was going to be pet.
he was going to be pissed, right? So he came over and I was like, "You can have mine. I'm so sorry." And in that moment, he actually was like, "Why are you crying? Like, what are you crying for?" And I'm like, I think he knew that I was afraid of him in that moment.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I was probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
I was pretty young.
So was that shocking to you that he didn't get angry?
Yes.
Because he normally would. What
Yeah,
would he do?
yeah.
What was the punishment? Was it just go to your room, time out, grounded?
I don't remember. I think it was more of like yelling. Like he was a yeller.
And what was your mom would allow? Like he was the disciplinarian. And your mom
For the
wasn't?
most part, she had her moments of doing the discipline as well, but because he was scarier, he was the one that was typically.
What was scary about him? Was it
So he's
his
a big
size?
guy. Yeah, he was tall.
How tall? Like 6?
6'5" maybe.
Holy, was
No,
he?
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know. I remember him
Like,
being
I remember.
6'5", but that's probably because he scared me so much. I see him as even taller.
that's true, and especially as a little girl.
Yeah.
But when I did meet him that one time, he was kind of tall. Wow.
Maybe
Okay.
6'2".
Yeah. So bigger, and he was a
Yes.
bigger guy.
He was a bigger guy.
A big
Right.
guy.
So he could be very scary
Oh,
if given the right
yeah.
opportunity.
Was were you both, you and your brother, like fearful of him?
So because my
Or-
brother's 5 years younger,
He was the baby.
I don't remember him being as scared.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Oh.
What was your dad like when you were little?
My dad's the opposite. So my parents divorced when I was 2 or 3, so I don't remember much of them being together. But when I was a kid, my dad would have us over the weekend. So he was kind of the weekend dad. And I think his whole goal was to be the fun dad, like to not discipline us, not be the heavy. It was just, I have them for 2 days a week. So we're going to be having the most fun. So we would go to the beach. He would take us on little trips. We'd go to Kauai, different islands. So it was never scary. I don't even remember a time where he's ever disciplined us.
No. Did he ever yell?
No. I don't remember a time where he would yell.
Wow.
He would never. Yeah. I don't remember any time that he would get angry and like, sure, he would get frustrated at us. Like I remember if I would do something bad or whatever, he would grab me by the earlobe and just like kind of like squeeze a little. And we would laugh because it's so stupid to do, but it was never anything disciplinary. I remember in school, if I was a really bad speller, and every Friday I'd have like a spelling test, and if you got like a D or below, you'd have to get your parent to sign it, and I would never send it to my mom. So I would always take it with me on Friday to go see my dad and have him sign it because he wouldn't even question it. I'd be like, "Dad, I need you to sign this for school." And he would just sign it, give it back to me, and it was fine.
He didn't even look at it?
Didn't try to quiz me on it. Didn't try to like, "Hey, you should know how to spell because." Like, it was just
let you?
Yeah, yeah. So I don't remember him being like a parent. It was always like a really fun, it was like the fun house for me. Yeah, yeah. How
So much
involved
different.
like was your dad? Because my dad wasn't involved in raising us very much. I mean, he was just the fun dad? Like, was your dad involved in raising you, like making sure that you went to school and did your homework, and was he involved?
So because my parents divorced when I was 11. So
So
when
what is
I
that?
was younger,
Third grade, fourth grade, something like that?
I think it was fourth.
Yeah.
No, maybe it was fifth grade.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
11.
So from the time I was born till fifth grade, he
Yeah.
was pretty involved. I can remember there was times we always ate dinner together. We always sat down as a family and we would eat dinner at the table, or if we ate in front of the TV, it was all of us eating in front of the TV. And he was very involved in making sure my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom at that time. So she
Mm.
was much more the one that got us up and got us dressed and made sure we went to school. But my dad was there. He did make sure that we got our homework done, that we got everything else done. So he was pretty involved in that aspect of it. But I would
Like,
say my
what
mom was definitely more.
did he work during the day,
He
or
did.
and was he like a laborious job, or like more of a
He was a
office?
roofer at the
He
time.
was, so it was laborious. So
Yes.
he would come home exhausted, I'm
Oh yeah.
sure. And maybe that's where like the disciplinarian, maybe, where you're just kind of like, you're freaking tired
Could
and you
be.
don't want these stupid kids
Could
to.
be. But I do remember him coming home from work and there was nights he would make dinner even though he worked all day. He
Oh,
did like to cook. I don't
okay.
remember him doing much cleaning, but he did cook around the house.
So would you label your dad as like a man's man, like an alpha guy?
No, not so much an alpha
No.
guy.
So was he like into sports,
Not
into building stuff in the garage, like
no.
that, like typical, like
Yeah,
manly dad?
no.
Yeah, mine
I don't
either.
remember him watching sports.
Yep.
I don't remember, well, we didn't have a garage because we lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
But even when we lived in Denver, I don't remember him going out to the garage, ever doing that stuff. He did like cars, but he never worked on cars. He just liked, the look of cars, some of the cars. Like I
Yeah.
remember he took us to a car show once and we went and looked at the cars. But no, he wasn't your like typical alpha
Yeah.
male.
Mine either. And it's weird because I didn't marry one either. Like my dad
didn't-
is, right?
Same.
Like I almost feel like there's some similarities there. Like
Yes.
who I chose as my husband
Right?
is just not like that typical alpha guy that's like afraid to look feminine. Not saying that my dad's feminine, but I think he leans more toward the feminine qualities than the masculine qualities. He would, I mean, he had to cook because he was a single dad, but I never saw him like get his hands dirty. His nails were always clean. I mean, he's an office guy, like he's a, well-educated office type of guy, but I never saw him like get dirty and like, how like manly men have like calloused hands and like just have this roughness and gruff about him. My dad was always just very clean. So your parents divorced when you were in fifth grade.
Yes.
And how did it change your dad as a dad after they were divorced?
That is a really good question. He actually, so in the beginning when my parents divorced, my mom moved us out and we lived with with my grandparents, my mom's parents. My dad would visit all the time in the beginning. Finally my mom this is what she told me. She sat down with him and told him, "Look, we're divorced. You can't come over here all the time." So he tried staying with friends. He actually stayed at his work once. He was sleeping at his work. There was a couch in the back. My mom told him, "The kids can't come visit you if you're sleeping in a couch at your work." So he ended up living with a friend. And so same thing at that point, like we would see him typically on the weekends. And he was a fun dad, but it was really weird because the people he lived with, it was a tiny apartment. So we didn't have a lot of space. So I think that it didn't help our relationship. And he would come to my school. He would take me out for a little bit. He would bring me like huge, like the king size Snicker bars. So of course I was like, oh, my dad's the best. He gets me out of school.
Yeah.
I was in sixth grade at this time because it was after they'd already divorced. My mom moved in with my grandparents. So he's taken me out of school. Once my grandparents and my mom found out that he's taking me out of school, they pulled me out of school and my brother because they were afraid that he was going to kidnap us. So we were homeschooled. And so when he left for almost good at that time, the apartments that my grandparents lived in, they had a little rec room next to their apartment.
Yep.
So I was in the rec room watching TV. My dad walks in and I'm like, Dad, oh, I'm so happy to see you. And he's like, go get your brother. I haven't seen your brother. So I go in the house and I'm 11 at the time. My brother's
So everybody's,
five.
5, 6, yeah.
Yeah, much younger. We didn't like hang out. Like we didn't hang out together.
Yeah.
So I go in the house and I'm like, hey, come on, let's go. Come to the rec room with me. Come play with me. Because my dad was like, don't tell anyone I'm here. And so of course my brother is like, no, I'm not. No.
You're trying to coerce
So
your
I'm like,
brother to
come
go.
on, just come on. It'll be so much fun. Let's go, let's go. And he's like, no. I'm like, come on, please hang out with me. So of course, all of this coercing that I'm doing, I get him over there. No, my grandparents and my mom are super suspicious about it. So I get over there. My dad he runs to my dad. My dad picks him up. The next thing I know, my grandparents come through the door. They see my dad. They start freaking out. My grandma goes over, starts hitting him.
Your little grandma. I mean, your grandma was
I
like
know.
98 pounds.
I know. This big guy. She starts hitting him and saying, let go of my grandson. He starts running away with him. Finally, they get my brother. My dad ends up leaving. So there's a part of me that always feels like he left me. Like he picked up my brother. Although he was holding my brother to begin with. And then,
Yeah.
So he ended up leaving. My uncle went out and had a conversation with him, whatever it was. I don't know. But I didn't see my dad again until I think I was 16 or 17.
From that day?
From that day.
He didn't call?
I don't remember. I don't recall. So, memory.
Yeah.
I don't recall him. I don't ever remember talking to him. I don't remember seeing him after that point.
So 5 years.
Yeah.
He disappeared, not like a Christmas present, a birthday card.
I do remember at some point getting cards. I don't know if my mom ended up giving me all the cards at one time that he was trying to
kind
send
of collected
me.
them and
I can't remember. It's so, yeah. But I don't remember physically seeing him.
Wow. Did you try to contact him? Or was it more of, well, he's my dad, he should be reaching out to me?
At that time, I didn't even know how to get a hold of him. And I think my mom kind of made it this isn't cool. And that's why they pulled us out and we were homeschooled for 7th grade. I was homeschooled for that grade. And then my brother was homeschooled for whatever grade.
So were you under the impression, like at that age, that not that your dad was dangerous, but like he was in the wrong? Like your family kind of made you feel like what your dad was doing was wrong.
Yes.
And so you had that, not stigma, but that impression of him.
Yes.
That he was the bad guy in the breakup.
Exactly.
And then he left. So then it maybe
Of course.
confirmed that she was right.
Yep.
Do you think your dad wanted to be around? But
that's the weird thing.
Was pushed?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that it's really hard to say because I don't like as a parent.
Yeah.
I don't know how you don't make that
fight.
Yeah. Why he didn't come and at least knock on the door and say, please let me see my kids. And I don't know that he didn't do that, but the apartment that we lived in, if somebody knocked on the door, everybody knew somebody knocked on the door.
Yeah.
So, and I don't recall just random knocks and we didn't know who it was.
Gosh, don't you ever wonder what that conversation was like?
Oh, absolutely.
That day, like what did your uncle say or what did your mom say that made him go, all right, I'll leave.
Right.
And never turn back. Because it sounds like that was the turning point, right?
That was it.
That was, God, did you ever relive that in your head?
Especially the scene in the rec room and being there and then my grandma coming in. There are times I relive that. And it's weird because I don't know that I wish anything would have gone different because I think in the end I found out who he was anyways. But then again, I do wonder what if that hadn't happened and things had gone a different path?
Yeah.
Would it be different today?
Like that day, were you angry at your dad? Were you angry at your grandma? Like
I think I was more scared.
You were scared.
It was a really scary thing to go through because I didn't see my dad as a bad person. So when my grandma comes in, who I adored.
Right.
So when my grandma and my grandpa, I adored them both. When they come in, freaking out at my dad, I see these 3 people that I absolutely love and they're all fighting. I don't understand it.
And then did you immediately kind of go, okay, I'm with grandma and grandpa on this? Like, did you?
I don't remember.
You don't remember feeling like, what side am I kind of
scared. On? And then I think my mom, I can't remember for sure, but I kind of feel like my mom ended up taking me back into the house and just saying and I think they kept talking about kidnapping and.
Oh, so you heard those words.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to be kidnapped.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be away from my mom and my grandparents. So it was a really awkward position to be put in at 11.
God, how do you digest that?
I don't think I ever did.
Yeah.
It's very strange.
Yeah, that's a huge turning point, and one that you can remember that moment. Like, I don't remember a moment where things changed. It was just always the way it's been,
Well, like you
you
said,
know?
when it happened, you were 3.
Yeah.
So it
So
was just kind of your
I
norm.
don't know what my dad was like before the divorce, but I know it fucked him up just because of the anger that followed. I mean, throughout my childhood, it's like I don't think any kid should be like your parents used keywords like kidnapped, and that sticks with you. You remember it.
Yep.
So when I was younger, my mom would always talk so much crap about my dad, just, him not being around, like, he's an idiot, like just using words that I didn't feel about my dad. And then anytime my mom was brought up to my dad, I mean, to this day, he hates her. Like, you mentioned my mom, and he has this like disgusted kind of feeling. And I don't know what happened. I wasn't old enough to know. They don't talk about it. All I ever hear is, oh, we were young and dumb. That's kind of the go-to excuse. And so I don't know what broke them up, but I know my dad suffered significantly, and he doesn't show emotions. So my dad was never one to like hug and tell us he loved. I don't think I've ever heard my dad say, I love you.
Never.
Other than like in a birthday card, he'll say like, love you, dad. But to say it verbally, I don't remember a time that's ever come out of his mouth. I never doubted it as a kid. I always felt like he showed love because, he took us out for trips. We went to the beach. He would play Barbies with me. He would, he was a fun dad. So I always felt like, yeah, of course he loves me. And I always chose my dad over my mom as a kid for everything. My dad was kind of the hero. Whenever like people would ask you like, who's your idol? It was always my dad. Like, he was fun. He was involved in my life. I was in soccer as a kid. He would come to every game, and my mom wouldn't necessarily. So I always felt like he was the one that was truly invested in my happiness. But as you grow older, I think that shifts, because then you open your eyes of, was I victimizing my dad? Because my mom was so angry and kind of, I don't want to call her a bitch, but she had so much this venom for my dad, that my dad almost seemed like he was the victim in all of it. From what I understand as a kid, I believe my dad went to work one day and my mom packed us all up and left my dad's house. That's what I understand of how it kind of finally
Went down.
ended. Yeah. So I don't know the truth behind it. I don't know the details behind it, but that's kind of what I was led to understand. And that sits in my head to this day, that how can you say goodbye to your husband or whatever, he's going to work, and then pack up the kids and all their stuff and then move to your mom's house?
And I'm sure that story helped perpetuate the
Oh,
idea in your
absolutely.
head.
He was the victim,
Right.
right? And he was left all alone. So I saw it as my mom got us moved to her parents' house. So now she has a house full of people, and my dad's left in that house that we used to live in as a family all by himself. So I always protected my dad because I always felt like he was alone, and I always needed to make sure that he was protected. And then when I would hear things from my mom, I would hate her. And it's like this struggle, and I don't want to cry about it, but it's just, it's just constant
Of
like
course.
protection.
Right.
But then as you age and into your adulthood, you kind of open your eyes to like, your parents are real people and they have real
Yes.
flaws. And sometimes what you thought might not be true now, right?
You had rose-colored glasses
Oh
on.
my God, I did. Yeah. I had rose-colored glasses on all the time. But as far as I know, it's difficult for you to really talk about how your relationship is with your dad today. But when was the last time you actually had a conversation with your dad?
Oh,
It's been a long time.
So it was when our youngest was born. So it's been about close to 11 years
Shit.
since I've talked to him or heard from him anything.
So your relationship today is non-existent.
Correct.
And is that
Nothing.
a good thing for you?
I think so.
Yeah.
I do believe at this point, especially the way that it ended, and I'll talk about that. It's better this way. And it just, to me, I felt like maybe I was hanging on to a relationship that was never really there. I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, I always go back and I think if things had been different, would we have a different relationship? But sometimes people have a certain personality and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that they're family. You're never going to mesh.
God, isn't that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you try to have a relationship with him before, like, you just stopped talking altogether?
I did.
And
So, yes. So actually the way we recently connected, well, 11 years, the way we ended up connecting the last time was when I met my husband. You know, you talk about your family
yeah.
and this and this, and I hadn't talked to my dad in a couple of years. And so my husband, who's very close with his family, was like, you should contact him. You should contact him. See if you can, make amends.
Yeah.
And I don't know at that time if I had told him the whole story of everything that happened, but he was really like pushing it. And I know it came from a good place because and his family is very much the type like you take care of family takes care of family.
Yeah.
But he has a family, that meshes well. And so he ended up reaching out to an uncle of mine, my dad's brother, and said, "Hey, Ashley is trying to get a hold of her dad. Do you happen to have his number?" He did. Josh gave it to me. And I said, he was like, "You really should call him. Just call him and see what happens." So
Were
I
you
ended up
nervous?
calling, of course. And
Yeah.
it took me, I think, a week after he got the number, it took me a week to call. And so I finally called, and he was he was like very emotional. He was like, "I'm so glad you called. I haven't heard from you in forever. It's so good to hear from you." Like, it was all this positive stuff. And he's like, "I'd like to come out and see you guys." So I said, "Okay, here's my phone number. When you get out here, just call us." So he did end up coming out. He took Josh and I out to dinner. We went to dinner at this, at Bupa de Beppo's.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting at a booth, Josh and I on one side, him on one side, and he starts talking and goes, "I want to talk about your mother." And I was like,
Oh, uncomfortable.
"I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah.
I was like, "No, I don't want to talk about my mom. Like, let's just leave that in the past." And he's like, "No, I really want to talk about this." And I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I just want you to know my side." And I didn't want to hear it. And it wasn't even that, because my mom did sometimes talk shit about my dad, but it wasn't like a constant barrage. And so I didn't, more when I was younger, I guess I was curious as to where he was and what he was doing. But I didn't have like a good or bad feeling about him at that time. So I just was like, I don't want to talk about her. Can we just leave it in the past? Let's just go forward. Like, we're here now. We can have a relationship. Let's go forward.
Yeah.
And so finally he let that go. We end up leaving the restaurant, and Josh is asking me, "Hey, why didn't you let him talk about your mom?" And I was like, looking back now, I honestly think he was fishing for, I think he really wanted the conversation not to be about him giving his side. I think he wanted it to be about, he wanted information about my mom. Now, again, I can't say for sure that that's the case because I didn't let the conversation play out.
Like, he was still in love with your mom, or just that curiosity to see how well she's doing now? Like,
Maybe a bit of both.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because was he single at that time, or was he
I
married?
believe he had just met his wife.
His wife. Okay.
His current wife.
Interesting.
Isn't
And your
it?
mom was done, right? Like, even
Oh,
if,
absolutely.
Okay. So even if your dad would have came knocking at her door, she would have been like, get out of here.
Once she was done, there was no way. There's nothing he could have done. She's told me that. Like, there is nothing. She said in the very beginning, when she decided to divorce, there was a couple of things he maybe could have done to keep her, but as it kept going and getting worse and worse, when she got to the point for divorce, she was completely done. There was nothing he could have done.
Wow. And he probably knew it at that point.
I think so.
Like,
I do.
that's hurtful to try to go through your children to, kind of snoop on the parent.
It is.
You're like, we're at dinner. Don't you want to know how I am?
Exactly.
Like, how my life is?
Yes.
Do you ever feel that way, that your dad was never truly interested in who you were and what you were?
Yes.
How you were doing?
Yep. Exactly.
Probably not, but did you ever ask him, like, why aren't you interested in me?
I didn't.
No.
No.
That's something that always lingers, and that I'm
For you?
always afraid to ask, because he never just checks in. He never did. I mean, we moved out of Hawaii. I think I was 9. We moved away from Hawaii. And then at that point, we would only see my dad once or twice a year, summer and then Christmas. And that was the only time we would ever talk, is in person. So
he never called
never
in
called.
between?
Never called. My birthday would fall in September, so I would get a birthday card, but he would never call us to check in on us. And it never felt weird at the time. Like when I'm 9, 10, 11, 12, met you, it just, that's just what we did, right? Like I see my mom and then I see my dad. And in between, we don't talk. Now I look back and it's like, what the fuck? Like that is completely fucked with my head.
Of course.
And there are things that happen now in like my own adulthood that go back to those feelings. And even to this day, we don't talk unless we're in the same space. And I don't understand it. And so I had asked him, I don't know, years ago. And I think it was more Thomas had pride, because I'm not gutsy enough to just tell him how I feel just yet. But Thomas had asked, like, why don't you ever call? Like, why don't you ever reach out? And I remember his response was, I don't ever want to intrude in your life. And it hits me in a place where you're like, you're my dad. Like
you're supposed to intrude.
You're supposed to intrude. You're supposed to text me and call me and say, hey, what are you up to? What's going on? How's your job? How's life? What's
new?
And the thing that hit me the most recent, and it's been like this. I mean, things for me, I don't remember the exact time where things have shifted. Like you can remember like that moment. But for me, I think the first memory that I can remember where my brain started changing as far as holding my dad at that pedestal was when Thomas and I moved in together. And I remember always going to Hawaii, feeling super excited. And then the day that we had to come back, I would cry and be in this like depression for a while. Cause it's like, I don't know when the next time I'm going to see him. And I know I'm not going to talk to him, right? Like I know the next time I see you and talk to you will be the next time I'm here in Hawaii. So that was always in my head. But I remember when Thomas and I moved out, I was 18, just about to graduate high school. And I remember leaving Hawaii that summer feeling excited because I felt like I'm kind of growing my own life here. And I miss Thomas so much more than my dad. And that was like the turning point of like, okay, like there's another man in my life. And it's sad like thinking about it, but it did feel like I wasn't in that depression mode anymore leaving him.
Right. You had somebody waiting for you.
Yeah. That truly, not that he didn't love me, but that was there, that was wanting to be there all the time and check in. But it's the lack of kind of reaching out that
did it for you.
Yeah. And it still does. So I'm like, why don't it makes me feel, first off, I think obviously it makes you feel abandoned, right? Like,
right.
And that some reason, am I not good enough to know? Am I like, you're not intruding anymore? Cause I always made excuses for my dad that, yeah, the reason that he doesn't call is because he doesn't want to talk to my mom. Right. So moving on, I'm like, I get it. He doesn't want to call my house because my mom's going to answer and he's got to deal with that. Made excuses for it. So it's like, of course, don't call. It's fine. I get it.
Makes sense.
But when I look back at it at this age, I'm like, when I used to go to my dad's house for summer vacation and Christmas, my mom would call all the time. And I remember always like, oh God, I wish she'd stop calling because I'm with my dad.
Right.
But when you think about it as an adult, it's like, but she didn't care who answered the phone. She wanted to talk to her kids.
Yep. She wanted to talk to you.
She wanted to see how we were doing, how our summer's going, what we were doing, if we're eating, if we're sleeping, like those things that I gave so much slack to my dad and was so angry at my mom. And now as an adult, you kind of go
see it differently.
That wasn't the way it should have been at all.
Strange, right? Yeah. It's strange that we do that.
That you give so much excuse to one parent based on, I don't know what it is. Is it the impression that they give you of the other, that you like, I victimized my dad based on my mom just constantly being angry.
Probably.
To where I'm like, no, Mom, you're the bad one. Like, you ripped us out of his house. Like, it's all your fault.
Well, I think not only that, but in your case, who was the disciplinarian?
My mom,
Right.
always.
But
Yeah,
but being that you lived here with her, didn't that kind of all fall on her?
that's true.
She didn't really have a choice but to take on that whole role. I mean, not that she didn't make the choice to move out here.
Right. No, but you're
But-
right. I mean, she was basically mom and dad. I mean, we had a stepdad, but she was the parent. That's true, full time. And even when we lived there during the week, I didn't want to go and stay at my mom's house because she wasn't fun. She was a disciplinarian. She was the hard ass. She was the bed at 8, get in the house, like, bath time, dinner,
So kids rebel against that.
Yeah. Chores,
Yep.
structure. And my dad was like, we don't even care what you do. Me and my brother had our own bedrooms at my dad's house. We never slept in them. We slept in the living room because we could. We slept on the floor in the living room. We stayed up as late as we want, slept in as late as we want. We didn't have chores. My room was a mess. Ashley, you would be surprised at how messy my room was at my dad's house. Barbies everywhere, clothes not folded, because we didn't have to. My dad didn't care.
It was fun.
And it was fun. And as a kid, it's like, who doesn't want to be at that house?
Yeah.
But then you grow
I want to be
old.
at that house now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That gives me anxiety now, like thinking about it. But yeah, it's strange how your mind kind of evolves as you age. And I'm not a parent, so I don't even have that to fall back on. But as a child growing into an adult, you
look
wish
back.
things were different.
Yes.
That still kind of haunt you, I guess, to this day.
Exactly.
Like, do you have qualities of your dad that you find in yourself at this age?
Oh yeah. So my dad early on, I didn't ever witness this, but I heard from other family members that he had a really bad addiction problem
Of like
to
specifically drugs.
Yeah, drugs, and then I believe alcohol as well. And so I have an addictive personality. I've been very lucky that I've never gotten to the point where I'm like, I have never been in treatment for anything. I did have periods where I drank a lot, and maybe I could have been classified as an alcoholic at that time, but it never got to the point where it interfered with work. And I rarely drink. We went out to dinner with some friends the other night. Last night we went out. I didn't drink, but my
Nice.
husband did. But a couple weeks ago, I went out with friends from work, and I had 2 drinks, and I was able to just have the 2 drinks. But it scares. But in the back of my mind, I know that that's what happens to me a lot. Is I can go a good long time without drinking, and then I have one bad episode where
It
I
sets
drink
you
so
off.
much I black out. So I'm very aware of that, and especially as I get older, I realize that I have addiction in my family and I have these addictive tendencies. So I try to stay away from alcohol as much as possible because I know it's there.
Was he visibly did you know that as a kid?
I didn't.
So he kind of hid.
I don't
his
think
addictions?
he was at that time. I think it was when we moved here when I was 7. I think it was before we moved here. So it was when we were in Denver. And I can't remember a ton of that time, but even then I don't remember him being like that.
So how did you learn it? Was it your mom that kind of told you like stories, or how did you know that he?
Well, so
Had
he
an
got
addiction?
diagnosed with hepatitis C.
Oh,
Yeah, so my mom ended up getting a letter when I think I was a teenager at the time. She ended up getting, so maybe he was, I don't know, but she ended up getting a letter that he had hepatitis C. And I heard that
Yeah.
he had shared needles.
wow. That's
Yeah.
and it's like, is that surprising? Or
When I was a kid, it was very,
Yeah.
so my parents were ultra Christians, very conservative.
right?
So to hear that about your parent who, we went to church all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a huge
Like
shock.
clean lifestyle
Clean.
of what you know. Don't you almost feel like maybe your childhood was kind of a lie? Like
Yeah, it taints the I mean,
Yeah.
childhood's tainted anyways,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
sure does.
shit. Oh my goodness. So okay, so addiction behavior.
Addiction.
Any like positive traits that remind you of your dad that you have today?
My dad I do remember laughing a lot when we were a kid. My dad, like I said, he was goofy.
And
I
you're
think
pretty
I tend to
goofy.
have a pretty, yeah.
I'd say
But
you're
my mom is that
goofball.
way too.
That is true. Your mom's pretty. Your parents are goofy people.
So they are very goofy people. So I think, partly that sense
yeah,
of humor
the fun.
I got from him. How about you?
Interesting.
Positive.
Positive. My sarcasm I get from my dad. That he has a high I don't know if it's positive or negative, but I call it positive in this aspect, that he has a high tolerance for bullshit. So he doesn't get angry easily. He can really have a mild temper for things. So I think that's probably a positive trait. And we laugh at like stupid shit. I think that's, some of my mannerisms remind me of my dad, and I don't even know it's happening until it comes out. I'm like, oh my God, that's my dad. So those things are positive. On the negative, I think it's the anti-confrontational quality of that I have, that I struggle with. Obviously, even talking to him about him is an anti-confrontational thing. But just in general, when people or things kind of make me feel a certain way, to address them is extremely difficult. And I see that with my dad, that he has avoidance, and I've taken that trait, and I wish I didn't. Because I almost feel like maybe our relationship could be different if I was somebody who just head on, just addressed things.
Just asked him.
Yeah. I would
questions
like
that you
have
had.
forced him to like be in a relationship with me.
Right. Like,
you know?
you're going to talk to me.
Yeah. And because we have that similarity, it just doesn't work.
I can see that. Yeah. Two people that avoid conflict.
Yeah.
Neither of them are going to address it.
No one's going to go, hey, you want to talk? It's like, I guess you don't want to talk to me.
So we're not going to talk.
We're never going to talk.
We're just going to,
we're going to
the rug.
Yep.
Put it under.
Our rug is full. It's like a mountain, I think. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my mountain.
No,
Maybe he doesn't have one.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess.
He could be like, for all I know, he could think that this is the way a father-daughter relationship should be.
That's a good point.
Right? He could think nothing's wrong. And on my end, I'm like, I'm tortured and suffering every day because I'm constantly like thinking about, not constantly, but you know, it pops in my head enough to where it interrupts my adulthood sometimes. Yeah. So, yeah.
Some heavy stuff.
It is. It's heavy. It's definitely heavy. So, okay. So if you had to describe an ideal relationship with your dad, what would that look like?
I you know, with my father and the way he is, like, so if I couldn't change his personality and it was him.
Say you could, for shits and giggles.
Okay.
He's still the 6'5" big guy. He still looks the same. He's your dad. What would you change?
I would have to, so I have to change the religious aspect of him.
Okay.
I don't mind that he's religious, but I don't want him to force it down my face. So that's how our relationship ended up.
Oh, that's right.
Ending.
Yeah.
He came out to visit when our daughter was born. He was staying in a timeshare somewhere. And we went to, it was just me and the baby and the kids. So we went down to his timeshare. They ordered some pizza. We're sitting around the table. Now, mind you, my kids did not grow up religious. I grew up going to church all the time, every Sunday.
Yeah.
From at least when my parents were together. When I lived with my grandparents were not like that. But my dad, I guess, stayed that way. So we're sitting at the table getting ready to eat some pizza. And he says, oh, let's pray. Elijah, my son.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead the prayer? And I said, oh, my kids, we don't know how to pray. But if you go ahead and pray, we'll bow our heads and we'll be respectful. Yeah. And so my dad was like taken aback. Like he couldn't believe that. He was like, they don't know how to pray. I was like, yeah, we don't pray. And he's like, and he didn't really know what to say. And he's like, okay. So he bows his head and thank you, Heavenly Father. And, says his little prayer and we eat our food and didn't say anything at that point. And we're just going along. And so he's like, oh, well, let's take the kids swimming. And I was like, okay, I have to feed the baby and I'm breastfeeding. So I'm like, if you want to start, you take the kids down, I'll breastfeed, and then we'll come down in a few minutes. He's like, okay. So as the kids are getting ready, he's asking me, he's like, so you don't believe in God? And I was like, I don't. And he's like, well, we raised you. Like he was like, didn't even know what to say to me. And I said, I know. And I just, based on things that I've gone through, classes I've taken, I've just changed my view on it. I don't believe. Yeah. And he's, he's just like, well, I don't understand it. And I was like, that's okay. You don't have to understand it. It's okay. And he's like, okay. And so he takes the kids, he goes down, I'm breastfeeding the baby. And his wife comes over to me and his wife's like, so you don't believe in God? Ugh. And I'm like, I don't. And she's like, well, you're going to go to hell. You know that, right? And I was like, I don't believe in hell, but
Yeah.
okay. And she's like, and your kids are going to go to hell. And I was like,
Excuse me.
no.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't believe that there's a hell. And she's like, well, whether you believe something or not, it's true. And I said, to me, there's not enough evidence. I don't believe it. It's fine that you do. I'm not gonna force my beliefs on you.
Right. So how
It's
about you
just-
keep yours to yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so she made it this big thing and made it very uncomfortable. And so then I just wanted to leave. And I just was like, can we not? And she's like, well, I have to share God with you and you need to know.
God.
And we all need to be in heaven together. And I'm like, look, can we can we not? And she kept going on and I was like, we have to go. I just want to leave. So I walked down to the pool and I told the kids, come on. My dad's like, what's wrong? And I was like, I want to go. So my kids get out and of course they're angry. They're like, why are we
wanna
leaving? We're
swim.
swimming. And I'm like, we got to go. So they get dressed and then my dad comes up and he's like, what's going on? And she's like, I was trying to tell her about God and she doesn't want to listen. And so my dad's like, well, why don't you believe in God? So I told him the same
So
thing.
he backed her.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
Exactly. And he's like, well, you go to hell. And I was like, I don't believe in hell. And I was like, I don't want this pushed on me.
Yeah. Don't be a
It's
preacher.
not okay. I said, I don't care what you believe. I'm not going to tell you to believe the way I do. I just don't believe the way you do. It's fine. We can talk about anything but this subject.
Right.
It's just not something that you're going to change my mind on. And if you're just going to tell me I'm going to go to hell, which is a really horrible
That's
thing.
a really shitty thing
and
to
that my
say to
kids
your
are gonna go to
your
hell,
grandkids and your daughter.
I'm not going to sit here and listen to it. And I was like, I'm going to go home. So I got in the car and as I'm leaving, he did walk me out and he's like, how did he say? Like, I can't believe this ruined the time we're here. And I can't believe you don't believe in God. And I was like,
God.
all the way to my car following me and harassing us about it. So we end up getting in the car and it was the first time I had felt relief there. So we get in the car and I leave. I remember him calling me one time after we were supposed to meet up with him after that. And I just couldn't, we didn't, I told him I can't, I just couldn't take any more of it. So after they went home, my dad called me and left me a voicemail one time. I returned his phone call, left him a voicemail. And that's the last time we've ever talked. And
so that was 11 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've changed my phone number since then twice. So
there's no way he would reach out anyway.
No, but I mean, there's other ways. If you really want to find somebody,
Yeah, there's
nowadays,
ways now.
You could.
And have you ever thought of trying to find him or?
Only out of morbid curiosity, just
Of
to
just
see
what
is
he's
he
doing?
still alive? So sometimes I'll look at obituaries.
Really?
Yeah, and I've never found his, but I only go through so many.
Yeah.
But I think I would know. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't.
How would you?
Yeah.
Because you don't have any contact with his family,
I don't.
too, right? So any of your
No.
dad's side cousins,
Nope.
grandparents, nothing.
None of them.
Wow, so you would have no idea.
I wouldn't.
Like,
That's why. So
If and
every
when
once in a while.
Yeah. If he's
just-
sick, if he had
Yeah.
COVID.
So
I
last
mean-
I heard, they were on the list to get a liver transplant because she also
Wow.
got hepatitis C from him.
So 11 years ago, that was the status?
Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. But at first, I think they said they weren't going to get a liver transplant. They were just going to it was God's will, whatever was going to happen. And then last I heard they were going to, but I don't know. I don't know if they did or not. They could both be dead. I have no idea.
How does that make you? Does that concern you, or are you just kind of?
It doesn't.
No.
At this point, after
There's some
11
closure.
years and all of it, I'm okay. So I don't know. So yeah, in order for him to be an ideal dad,
Yeah. Back to yeah.
it would have to be not that. Look, if he wants to be religious, cool, be it, but don't
Yeah.
force it on me. If you want to pray, if I come to your house and you want to cook me dinner and you want me to pray, I will bow my head and I'll be respectful of what you want to do.
Yeah.
But if he's going to sit there and tell me you're going to hell because you don't believe the same way, I'm not going to put up with that shit.
Right. Yeah. Don't be insulting.
So he would have to just let me be the
not
way.
religious or shut your trap about it.
Right. Yeah.
And then be present. I don't know. I mean, be around.
Yeah.
Right.
Be around, but my dad
would you-
kind of I don't know. At this point, after 11 years, I just feel like it's probably best. We don't have anything in common.
So you don't even really appreciate his personality of someone that you would want to have a friendly relationship with.
I don't
Take
think
dad and
so.
daughter out of it. Just someone you would get along with.
Maybe if it was the
Yeah.
ideal situation, maybe then, and there wasn't all the past history of
Right.
all that garbage, then I'm sure things would be different. Yes, because you know what? There are times I think about I would like to have a father figure, but but because of how mine was, I don't even know what a normal father looks like.
Right. Do you struggle with that?
I do.
I mean, thankfully, your kids have like
Yes.
they have their dad. So you almost kind of, I don't know if you're like envious of it, but you're like, you at least know what it's like to have your dad there all the time, like for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I get envious of.
So I guess, I mean, there is no normal quote unquote father figure, but yes, my husband is there for the kids. He tells them he loves them.
Yeah.
He checks on them. So I can see that would be, I mean, yes, I would like something like that.
And foreign, who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
we could probably hate it for all we know.
That's true.
Right.
So what would your dad look like as an ideal dad to you?
Okay, so I gotta erase all of the things that haunt me. So probably really involved. So just say, we still lived in different states, but I would get texts once in a while. I would get a phone call, and that phone call would be, how are you? Right? Like, what are you up to? So someone that is curious about
your
me.
Life.
Because I'm always curious about his. And whenever we do have conversations today, when we do in person, it's always what's happening with him, what's happening in Hawaii. It's never, how's Vegas? How's your job?
So he doesn't reciprocate
Never.
those questions.
Never. I never get a response of how you're doing, because it goes back to the I don't want to intrude.
Right.
And if she wants to share, she will. That's what I take from him. So I'm not going to ask her. If she wants to tell me, she'll tell me. And I'm the one that's like, if you're not going to ask, I'm not going to tell you. Right. So,
oh, no.
So that would be changed, where he
Okay.
would be curious, ask questions, call me. I don't want just a birthday card for my birthday. I'd like a phone call. I'd like a happy birthday. I remembered it's your birthday today.
Right.
Like,
singing you happy birthday.
Yes. I don't want a Facebook response. I do the same thing back to him, because I feel like that's the relationship he wants is, okay, I'll just send you a card for your birthday and Father's Day, and I won't call you. So that's the relationship we have. No one calls anybody. So the relationship would be pick up the damn phone and call each other and talk to each other. Another one is visit. Visit.
When was the last time?
Last time was the New Year's before my nephew was born. So it was 2010 going into 2011.
Okay.
So 10 years.
10 years.
10 years was the last time he was in Vegas. And I've been to Hawaii several times since then. And I will even make it a point to stop by. Like, we went on a cruise, and I made sure that the cruise stopped in Honolulu for a day to spend time with my dad. We went to Kauai for a trip. We flew to Hawaii for a day trip to see my dad and my brother and grandparents and what have you. But we made it a point that if we're nearby, we're going to stop. My dad has come to the mainland for like work trips. Like, one, he went to Southern California, like he went to San Diego, and my husband and I, we drove the car to go visit him. He had to be in California for 30 days for some training class. We drove to California to see him. Like, you never come to Vegas to see us.
So do you feel like you're the one making the effort?
Yeah. And the thing is too, is the invite. Like, my dad will say, yeah, I'm in San Diego for work. He won't say, do you want to come together? I will take that as Thomas and I would drive by and see you. So I will like initiate the plan. And of course he's open to it, but I never hear the, I'd like to see you. I never hear that. I just go, oh, well, you're telling me. So obviously I need to plan something. Yes. And that I would change. I want to hear, I love you. I want to hear, I love you. That's what I want to hear. And I never hear it.
Well, I love you.
I love you. And
you're my toes, my cheeks.
It's one thing that I will say I get a lot of in my marriage that maybe is something that I hold so tight to, because Thomas never not says he loves me.
Even, so you know.
Yes, always. It's always verbalized. Aww. I wish I had that from my dad. And I don't know if this is ideal and I would love it. I might fucking hate it. But when I think of my ideal relationship is a dad that's involved.
Who doesn't want to hear I love you though?
Yeah. Don't you?
So, yeah.
Like anyone that loves you, don't you want to hear it?
Yes.
It makes you feel good.
It does.
And is it hard for you to say I love you?
No. No, I say it freely all the time.
I say it freely, except to my parents.
Well, yes. But I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
Did you
My
when you were a
parents are
kid? Did you
cunts.
say it freely?
No, but I don't remember them
So they weren't
saying it
people
either.
that were vocal about their love either.
No, my grandparents either. I don't really remember.
Yeah. Well, nobody on my dad's side says I love you. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah, I don't think my dad.
On
I
my
don't.
on my mom's side, my grandma was always a I love you, I love you, love you. And it was so annoying because she was the only one and she was so coddly and like huggy and stuff that it was kind of annoying. But looking back, you're like, yeah, but that was kind of nice, right?
Right?
Like,
You liked
I
it.
want to hear somebody say I love you.
Yeah.
But I do find that it's awkward for me to tell somebody I love them, other than Thomas, obviously, and his parents. I love to death and I will tell them I love them. But other than that, it's difficult for me to display that emotion because I never got it as a kid. But you feel like, hey, if I love you, I'm going to say I love you.
Yeah, right. I think I went in the opposite direction.
To where you're like super lovey.
Yes.
Oh. See,
Yeah.
I kind of envy that. I always idolize that with Thomas. Like he just will say it freely.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like,
With Josh and the kids all the time. And see,
Yeah.
with my kids get annoyed with me because I so often
You
tell
say
them
it?
I love you. Yeah. All the time. And they're like, I
Yeah.
love you too. I'm like, you're going to miss this.
Yeah.
Someday.
You better be happy that I love you and I tell you.
Yeah.
Because it sucks when it's not happening.
Exactly. I think they understand. Well, the older two, the baby's still a baby.
I mean,
But
is she?
no, she's not a
I know you want to
baby.
call her baby, but
She's almost 11.
she's
not a
definitely
baby.
developed memories.
Yes.
She's not a baby. but yeah. Anything else about your dad? I think I mean there's a lot, but
There is a lot.
There
is a lot.
It's a lot to continuously unpack.
Right? It's
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Does Josh remind you of your dad at all? Any
I
qualities?
don't think so. No, because Josh likes sports. But he's not your like
typical
he's not like a machismo kind of man.
Yeah. That's the word that I was kind of thinking
Yes,
of. Yeah.
but he does like sports. He likes your typical guy things. He likes sports, the boxing, that kind of stuff. But he also has a desk job, so it's not a laborious job.
Yeah.
His hands.
He's not crafty.
He's not crafty. Yeah. No, I think he could be if he tried. He just doesn't have an interest in it.
Yeah. I was going to say Thomas doesn't have the motivation to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't have ambition to do any
No.
crafty. Yeah.
No. But he is not. Yeah, he's a goofball, but more in a sarcastic way where my dad wasn't so much sarcastic. But yeah, no, he doesn't remind me.
So maybe you avoided those qualities.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I think so. Although maybe I'm just in denial,
Maybe.
but I don't think.
It seems though that from my perspective, it seems like you have really gotten closure that you're okay with that relationship. Like,
Yes.
It doesn't, from me, it doesn't seem like that's something that bothers you, that you don't have a relationship with him. That's kind of the choice that you would have made.
Yes. And
So-
I think because I mean, when my parents sat me down, well, when my mom told me my parents were divorcing, that's when it all hit me and it was really hard. And then because he was, not a constant present in my life from that point, he was there and then I didn't see him again until I was 17 at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
And I thought he was kind of weird.
That's kind of weird.
Right? Yes, creepy. Like he got down on his knees to hug me. Like he was almost overly like
Yeah. I thought your dad was
attentive.
weird for sure.
Yeah. And so I just thought that's really, really weird. But then, so my mom told me later on that she believed that I had been molested by him when I was a kid. And so I don't know if but even I didn't know that at 17 and I felt creepy vibes and you felt creepy vibes. So I don't know.
Yeah. So like when you heard, how old were you when you heard that from your mom?
I think she told me at some point, I think it must have been after. So I was probably like 18, 19, probably around, 18 or 19.
Did you kind of scrub your memories in your head to try to find like what was one that was weird?
Yes, I did.
Suspicious?
And so the really weird part about it is I don't have many memories from when I was young. Like I can't remember. I can't remember. There's only certain memories I have of when I lived in Denver, and none of them involve my father. And so so my mom was pregnant with my brother when it was thought to happen. So I would have been 5 because I'm like 4 or 5.
Yeah. And
And
you kind of are building memories at that. Like
do
I
you
can remember
remember?
some things when I was like 5. Yeah.
Same. I asked Josh, and he remembers things from that age.
Yeah.
So, and the way it was told to me, I don't remember any of this happening. I don't remember being molested, but my mom, uh, my mom told me that I would take poker chips. I don't even remember them playing poker, but I would take a poker chip and I would scratch my vagina with it. And she thought, well, that's really strange. You know, what kid at 4 or 5? Like, I know my daughters weren't scratching their vaginas at 4 or 5.
Why a chip?
I have no idea.
Was it better than your
I
nails?
don't know.
Okay.
I guess the next time your cooch itches, try a
Just
poker
grab
chip.
a poker chip.
I don't know.
Okay.
But so
Okay.
I know it's terrible. So my mom ends up my mom tells my grandma said, get her into the doctor. So my grandma takes me to the doctor. Doctor says, oh, she has a yeast infection. Here's some stuff to, clear it up,
And that's
whatever.
not normal for such a
No.
young girl.
Doctor didn't say anything that time. It happened again. So my grandma takes me in again. And I don't know how many times it was, but at one point the doctor told my grandma, kids this young don't typically get yeast infections unless they're being molested.
Oh, they just flat out said
Yes. And so my grandma didn't tell my mom this right away. She waited. I don't know why. Again, this is all what I was told. So eventually my mom finds out. She confronts my dad. I stopped getting yeast infections. So it's, so knowing the possibility that he could have molested me, that's tainted our relationship as well.
that. Of course.
It just more puts it at like, and he's never really given me like a good reason for us to even have a relationship. It's very weird. So yeah, at this point, I think after 11 years and all the stuff that I know about him and I'm okay with not having a relationship
Especially
with him.
if do you feel that there's truth to
I do.
you do.
I do.
So you feel like you may not remember episodes of whatever may have happened, but you believe that is probably
it's
probably something that has happened.
And you felt the creepy vibes from him too
I mean, I thought he was very
alley.
strange.
Yes.
He was strange. And yeah, like you said, he got down on, I mean, we were, what was 16, 17?
Yeah,
I mean,
around that age.
Old.
Yes.
So the way that he was kind of treating you like a little
child.
girl was
yes.
weird.
Exactly.
It was not normal that I've seen, but
so
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what that would feel like mentally, but
right. So it's just a different perspective that at this point I have enough people in my life that that love me.
Yeah.
And that have, and I don't know when it was that I was okay with it. I think, honestly, when I got in the car and I felt that huge, like, just relief, I think at that point I almost knew like things had shifted.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it. And it wasn't until a couple months later that I realized that I hadn't gotten a return phone call. And I was like, you know what?
That's okay.
Yeah. It's what it is. I've mourned that relationship enough.
Do you feel like because you have your own kids and, you're obviously protective of them, that you were easily ready to kind of let go just to protect your kids, maybe?
That could be.
Because it seems like, gosh, in that environment, like just pushing religion in general and knowing that your kids were there, I don't know.
Right.
I think it would hit different
yes.
for me if that was the case versus
Absolutely.
just me.
Yeah, I mean, my kids could never go and ever hang out with him.
Yeah.
Because I would never trust him to be with my
right,
kids.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So it's like, okay, what else is left?
Yeah.
And then that's lingering in the back of your head. Oh, that's got to be tough, yeah.
I know.
I guess that's easier to let go.
Yes, exactly. Like I know I always feel like, yes, in cases like this, it's much easier to say like, I've cut it off. In other cases, it's much harder.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't see you wanting to cut that off. I think you just more would like to increase what you have.
Yeah. I've never had the desire to cut my dad off. I just wish it was different, because I find my dad to be a really fun person. When I can think of my happy memories, it's always fun. I used to love going shopping with him. He would play Barbies with me. I would have like this whole pageant set up and he would be the judge. Like it was always a really fun, and it still is when we're together and, we're hanging out and we're joking around. It's great. I just hate that it has to end at that. and it doesn't linger into
every day.
Yeah, I'm just because I'm in a different state, it means that we have no relationship. That's the thing. I can't wrap my head around like why that happens.
The in-betweens.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I blame myself of like, well, Rose, you're an adult. Why don't you reach out? And then I struggle internally of, I'm still the kid, damn it.
No, but I think you're right. Because I always feel like that. Like,
You know?
you are the kid.
And it's like, and then I go, no, like you have to look within. It's like, no, if you want a relationship, you build one. But then in my head, I'm like, yeah, but he should be, I don't know. I always just point back, right? Like, why didn't he establish one? Why do I have to be the one? And it's like, grow up. Like in my mind, I'm like, grow up.
Right.
And if you want one, do one. And it's just, and then I'm anti-confrontational because I got
So
it from my dad. So nothing ever changes. And then it lingers, this feeling. And I don't know when it'll ever change. And then you think like how, you don't know if your dad's even alive. In my mind, I'm like, my dad's not getting any younger. Right. So I don't want to miss that opportunity to have a relationship, but then I don't even know where to begin because at this stage, he has no idea who I am, and it hurt me the most when Thomas had cancer last year. And I told my brother, and he never called to check in. And that was probably the most like poignant point of my life where then I go, maybe there isn't room for a relationship, because something like that you would expect if somebody really loved you and wanted to be a part of your life, they wouldn't feel like they were intruding because they know that that's a point where you need all of the support that you can possibly get. And then I still didn't get it. It does kind of solidify maybe his stance that he doesn't want one other than what we have, right? Because if he was going through something, and yes, me and his wife, we're not besties, right? I don't hate her. I just don't want a relationship with her. But for some way I found out she was sick. You better damn believe I would be calling my dad to make sure that he's got everything he needs. And if there was anything I can do to help. And then I didn't get it back. It just like
hurts.
Yeah. And to this day, it's not like, hey, how's Tom? How are things?
Right. So still no follow-up.
Nothing. I got a birthday card for my birthday last year. But yeah, nothing.
No phone call.
No phone call, no follow-up. I get he's retiring this year, and his plan is to come to Vegas to visit. And so you hold on to those, and it's stupid. Like, I think about it, and I feel dumb because I think, oh, God, he said he's coming to Vegas. And I hold on to that excitement of he really does care, right? He really does want to be a part of my life. And then, he'll come for, I don't know, a week, and then goes back to the old, But then you hold on to those little, like,
crumbs.
Baits. Yeah. Little crumbs of potential hope. And then you go right back. So just, yeah. I would change all of that.
Right.
If I could.
And then it would be an ideal.
I think. Who knows?
Right.
I could still be sitting here complaining about it. But you could.
It's hard to say.
Could hope. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was somewhat therapeutic.
It was.
I think we got out a lot about who our daddies are.
Yeah, and shared a lot about our lives and childhoods.
Stay tuned for Who's Your Mama at some point. So
right.
that one should be interesting.
Yeah. Who's Your Mama's gonna be very good.
I think more for you. I think that one would be.
If you thought Who's My Daddy was good, then just hold your pants.
Stick around. We might need some time in between.
Yes.
Give us a couple months maybe.
I didn't have just one fucked up parent.
That's right. You wonder why we are the way we are? Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Find out.
Yes. Well, thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Stick around for the next one.
Bye.
Bye.